In this video, we will continue to understand the nature of the evil spirit and its tactics. So we shall take up the 3 images of the devil, as suggested by Saint Ignatius of Loyola. So the final 3 rules of the first set deals with the nature of the enemy, the evil spirit, and his tactics. In rule number 12, the evil spirit is likened to a spoiled child or a bully. Actually, in the original text, the evil spirit was compared to a woman. But as we now know, that is not going to be acceptable in this time and age. And so, another or perhaps the images that also demonstrate or can show us exactly what the nature of the evil spirit is that of a spoiled child or a bully. So give in before a child, a spoiled child or a bully. If we give in and give them what they ask or demand of us, they will only demand more. We know that the spoiled child is demanding of something, and if that demand is not granted, the spoiled child goes into a tantrum. And sometimes, just so we can appease the spoiled child, we find ourselves giving them what they want, giving into their demands. And then what happens is, sometime in the future, they will again try to make more demands with the threat of going into a tantrum if we don't give in. Now, the bully, on the other hand, is somebody who uses his or her power in order to get what he wants or she wants. And if they are successful, then they will bully us a second time, a third time, a fourth time. Now, there's probably another way of understanding what it means when we say we give in and they will want something more in the future. And let me share how here in the Philippines, we have, for instance, in the remote areas, maybe in the provincial cities, maybe not in metropolitan Manila, you have these peddlers, peddlers who walk the streets. They're usually the residential areas, the residential places, and they bring with them their wares, so maybe some household items for the kitchen or for the bathroom. And as they walk the streets of the residential areas, they will call out to residents and advertise what it is that they are selling, that they will probably say pillows and mattresses. Anyone out there who needs pillows and mattresses, or stoves and dishes or woks. So they shout out about their wares as they walk the streets, no? And then usually some people's attention will be caught by that. And so you probably open your window to look out and see what is that person talking about, what is he shouting about in the streets. Or you might find yourself going to your gate and opening it and looking at the guy or who is going around with his wares. And the moment you do that, actually you have already been engaged by the peddler. So the peddler knows that you are curious and perhaps interested in what he has to offer. And so what will happen is he will engage you and show you his wares, what it is that he is selling. And then you find yourself already engaged in the process, and you start to look at what are the merchandise, what's the merchandise that he is selling. And perhaps you will end up asking for the price of this or that and haggling. And he probably will say, okay, if you think this item is too expensive for you at the moment, then go for the less expensive item. Just get the small one that you can afford, And then You do that because maybe you feel okay, you got convinced that, yeah, I don't need to get the big items and just go for the small items. But one thing you can be sure about, the following week, when he goes back to your area, he will be knocking at your door and offering you another set of items, but this time perhaps more expensive than the first one that you got. So the thing here is, sometimes without our knowing it, we already give into small things, and then Satan can come back and ask for greater things, greater involvement in his tactics, so to speak. And therefore, Saint Ignatius will say that we must stand firm in courage. Okay? So Saint Ignatius said, we must not give in even to the small requests. We must stand firm in courage. That we do not need to give in or fear the bully, because Satan is essentially a coward who will run when confronted or when you are firm. The second image is given in Rule 13. And this time, the evil spirit is compared to a false lover, or likened to a false lover who uses and objectifies others for their own selfish ends. So, first characteristic of the false lover is the false lover will not commit, will simply use others, no, for their own selfish ends. But the other characteristic of the false lover is the false lover will want the affair to be kept secret and in the dark. And you will, at some point in your relationship, the false lover will say, keep this between the two of us. Do not let others into this relationship. So the evil spirit screams at us, if you tell anyone, they will reject you. They will reject you if they find out that you are engaged in an affair, okay? So the evil one gains power over us when we keep his evil attacks hidden and fear. There are many things when we have done something wrong, the natural tendency is really to keep it to ourselves, no? Not to talk to anybody about this. We want to keep whatever is wrong in the dark. However, when you humbly bring his attacks, no, all these wrongdoings that we have into the light, especially by revealing it not to everyone, but at least to a spiritual director or a confessor, then that evil thing loses its power over us. So when we bring it to light, and bring it to light by speaking about it to another person, then somehow the power of the secrecy is going to be weakened. Okay? And so our tactic against the evil spirit is to bring our fears and temptations into the light by sharing them with a trusted friend, a confessor, or spiritual director. So if you notice, it doesn't mean you have to proclaim to the whole world what you have done. It doesn't mean it has to be made public, but we want the power of the secrecy to leave us, no? To leave us free, and that the best way to do that is confess it or talk about it to somebody who is trustworthy. So the attacks of the evil spirit is like mold, one writer says. When the mold remains in the dark, it grows. When it is exposed to light, it dies. So thus, it is always spiritually fruitful to be open and honest about what you are experiencing on a spiritual level. No? Somebody said, when you go for spiritual direction and when you go to confession, that matter which you hesitate to share is precisely the matter that ought to be shared in order that it may be brought to light and lose its power over us. And then in Rule 14, this is actually the last rule, okay, of the first set of rules. The evil spirit is like a military commander who discerns the weak points in the enemy's defenses in order to attack. So the evil spirit can sometimes probably know us more than we know ourselves, no? Because the evil spirit, okay, is able to see our weak points. And once he has discovered that, once our weak points are revealed to him, that is what he is going to attack. So the evil one will usually attack us at our weakest point. Therefore, we need to be aware of our weaknesses, no? Some of us are afraid of our own weaknesses. Some of us would rather turn a blind eye to our weaknesses because they're very disturbing. When we see them, when we recognize them, we get disturbed. We come face to face with our imperfection and our weakness. But that's precisely what we need to do in order for us, okay, not to be unaware, to be attacked unaware of our weakest points, no? Therefore, how do we do this? How do we become aware of our weaknesses? Well, first of all, we have to check our attitude towards our weaknesses, no? Are we afraid of our weaknesses? Okay. So if we're afraid of our weaknesses, we will never get to face them. We will never want to ever look at them. But we need to look at them so that we know what we need to guard against from the evil spirit. So what is an example of weakness? If you have struggled with a habitual sin, no matter what you do, you just know you will keep on falling into this particular sin, no? That is an indication, that is an area of weakness. And that is an area that the evil spirit can use to attack us. So anything you struggle with is a potential area of attack from the evil one. Perhaps you struggle with overextending yourself, no? So sometimes we see this, in fact, even a virtue. You are selfless in your giving. You don't mind the consequences on your health, etc. No? Or perhaps you struggle with sins of the flesh, no? Wanting pleasure, no? Experiencing pleasure. Or maybe we tend to gossip and many other things that we know we struggle with. So whatever your weakness is, that is where he will attack. And what we fall into habitually, or the sin we fall to in habitual manner, that which we find hard to control, these are indicators of what the evil spirit can use to attack us. If, however, you are very aware of who you are and what weakness you struggle with the most, then you will be in a good position to rebuke and overcome his attacks when they come. How does that happen? So like you will say, for instance, to the evil spirit, I know what you're trying to do. I know that you are trying to tempt me, to lure me, because you know that this is something that I cannot control. This is something I always struggle with. So when you know that, you can tell yourself, okay, I know that I should actually be mindful about this, no? So you know, before the evil spirit can attack you, you will recognize that the evil spirit is using your weakness, okay? Therefore, self-knowledge and humility is important in resisting this attack, no? Sometimes we do not look at our weaknesses, not because we're afraid of them, but sometimes we cannot stand it when we see our limitations. And that is also a sign of pride, of lack of humility. So when we know, so self-knowledge and humility are important in resisting this tactic of the evil spirit. We are to reflect and to pray about our weaknesses and to bring them to the Lord for strengthening. No? An unhealthy amount of pride and complacency makes us even more blind to our weaknesses. For instance, no, sometimes we hear about a person's falling into some serious sin. And sometimes we even find ourselves saying, me? That will never happen to me. I'm strong. I'm not able. That will not happen to me. I'm strong in that area. And then we end up feeling complacent, only later on to realize that that which we are so prideful about, okay, will actually be used by the evil spirit also to attack us, because we have failed to recognize our vulnerability in that area. So, I leave with you two questions. Do you recognize the tactic that the evil spirit uses on or with you? Which of the three tactics are you likely to be vulnerable to? Like if you're somebody who already is secretive by nature, then the tactic of the false lover will work well for you. Okay? Or if you're somebody who is very proud, and therefore in your pride, you do not look at your weaknesses, or you believe that you have no weaknesses at all, then the military commander tactic is what you are vulnerable to. On the other hand, if you're a pleaser, you accommodate anybody, not everybody who comes to you, then it's possible that the first tactic of the evil spirit who actually will make requests, they won't look like demands initially. Probably that tactic of the evil spirit is what worked with you because you're somebody who is very open, very accommodating, always engaging others, always wanting to be of help. Then the evil spirit can use the first tactic on you. So there you have it. Spend some time recognizing the tactic of the evil spirit, because that's how we free ourselves from his influence. When we know him well, when we know very well how the evil spirit works with us. And this is also why we need spiritual director. Sometimes it is another person who will be able to point out to us, okay, what are the tactics of the evil spirit that will be successful if he uses that on us. No, I heard that in the course of Father Thomas Green, no, when he teaches this in Loyola School of Theology, one of his assignments is he asks his students precisely, no, to write the evil spirit, and prompt the evil spirit on how to tempt you and be successful at it. And that's not a very easy thing to do. That requires that you understand your weaknesses and you understand how the evil spirit works, because you are going to write a letter to the evil spirit to coach the evil spirit on how to tempt you and be successful at tempting you. There's an exercise in how much we know ourselves, most especially our weaknesses. It's an exercise also in understanding the modus operandi or the tactics of the evil spirit.